Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you go further, faster in business and beyond. Yes, you go from project manager to becoming a strategic project leader. We are coming at you live today from the Strategic Project Leader Studio in Alberta, Canada. I am your host, Fola Alabi of 𝗯𝗲𝗵𝗶-𝘁𝗵𝗄, your holistic business and transformational leadership expert. I educate on how organizations and you, as an aspiring project manager, a seasoned PM, or even a PMO manager, can leverage an entrepreneurial focus to project management to drive ROI and outcomes in business and beyond. That's right. You're going to create that path for you to go from where you're at now to land the number one position of that CEO position that you've always wanted as well. Today is one that I have waited for such a long time. I've got an exceptional guest with me today. He was meant to have been on the show a couple of weeks ago, but things actually didn't work out the way we wanted. I have got a leader, an author, a speaker, a PMO fellow. We're talking about one of the founders of the Project Management Professional. He's not just one who just shows up because he wants to just support people, but he's got a heart to support and give back. He's a distinguished contributor. He's won the awards over and over again. Can you just please help me? Give me a round of applause as I get on stage with Lambert today. Lee, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, Fola. I wasn't for sure you were talking about me there with all those compliments.
Oh yes, without a doubt. I was talking about you. How are you doing, Lee? How have you been?
I'm doing great. I'm just back from Las Vegas and our PMO summit or PMI summit, and big things are happening. Big things are happening.
Definitely. I know when we talk about project management and how it's going to become the next couple of decades and how we can drive that as project leaders as well, we cannot wait to unpack that. However, all our audience want to know, Lee, when it comes to the project management professional, you being one of the founders, why should we get that designation in the first place?
Well, the beauty of a certification is it lets people understand that you've put in the effort to be sure that you understand the body of knowledge that you work in, the particular field that you work in this case, obviously project management, and it certifies that you've been willing to sit for an exam that tests your knowledge to be sure that you do, in fact, qualify to have that kind of a title. And I still, to this day, write letters of congratulations to every new PMP because I think it's a big deal. I'm still... Obviously, I'm a little biased, but the fact of the matter is, I think it still is really what it's all about from in terms of credibility. I know hiring organizations are looking at that as one of the qualifying standards that they look for in new employees, and I think that's going to continue to grow.
Fantastic. So to your point, it's a designation that is globally recognized without a doubt. It gives you a step to go into the world of project management. However, when we get that designation, what next?
Yeah, that's the thing that we've got to start to focus on. I've been trying to get people's attention that just getting that certificate is really just the beginning. It's not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your journey. And I think what we have to do then is look at how can we capitalize on that knowledge to improve both our position and realistically the company for which we work, their position. What we're trying to do is deliver projects that add value to the organization, and that translates to ROI. So I think it's good for people to recognize that we're just getting started when we pass the exam. We're not done.
Definitely. The designation is just a start. Within the project management profession, we know that project managers are obviously there to help organizations achieve strategic goals. But so when PMs think about that, they're like, okay, I thought I was just there to just deliver on time and on budget to quality, just my little piece. But having that wider focus as to how exactly does my project impact on the bigger picture? How does my project even impact on other projects and programs? What are dependencies as well? That starts to create a different shift that PMs need to actually cultivate. From your wealth of knowledge, I just saw one of this. I picked up this a couple of years and years ago. I saw that in one of my in my library. It's kind of old and beaten up. The common sense approach is what I really love when it comes to the way you actually drive projects and you talk about it. How can project managers begin to adopt the common sense approach to ensure that they are delivering value to clients consistently?
Well, that's a great question. I think the very first thing I always recommend is that you better be aware of where your projects fit in the hierarchy of strategic planning for the organization. If you're on a project that has no strategic relevance, then you're not going to be able to get the resources you need. You're not going to be able to get the support that you need to get that project done. So know where your project fits. I think there's it's a double-edged sword. Project managers need to know where their project fits, but senior level management needs to establish priorities on projects so that we can see what those levels of priority mean to the project manager. If you're 25th in a group of 25 project managers, you're in trouble. You're not going to be able to get everything you need. If you're number 1 or 2, you're going to be able to influence the outcome by getting what you need to support that project. It's not about you. It's about what the project completion adds in value to the organization. I think one of the things we are working on very diligently in project management at PMI is identifying good value proposition for the question of what's in it for me. What do I want to get out of this? And I think this is one of them that I know paid off for me successfully. Early on, I found out what that strategic linkage was and how important it was, and played that for many years to the effect that it made me look really smart, when in fact it was really just about knowing how I was linked up with the organizational components.
That piece is absolutely critical when it comes to aligning your projects to the overall strategic goals and objectives. Because if there is that misalignment, it means pretty much at some point in the project life cycle, your project may even be canceled or stopped because there really isn't that relevance. So from experience, right, when a project manager finds himself in a position where things are not really seeming right, there's kind of like a misalignment, how can they show up and manage those expectations to say, what exactly can I do right now? How can they become more proactive? How can they become more strategic and create that mindset that I need to see that alignment and I need to ensure that I am creating something that can impact ROI? What can they do?
Yeah, I think that's also a very important question. I again want to rely on my experience. One of the things that I suggest you do is look around the organization, look for areas where you can add value, and then volunteer to help the organization, to find ways that you can take your knowledge, your expertise, and do things that will benefit the organization. So maybe it's not your project. Maybe your project is of insignificant worth according to all those strategic plan. But if you can find where you can add value. Now, here's what I did. In an organization, we talk at PMI about volunteerism all the time because that's what we do. But in an organization, you don't really think about volunteerism. And I got to tell you, for me at least, it paid off by looking at where are things being done that could benefit from my support, and then I volunteered to do them. And that's actually how I became a trainer in project management. Is that General Electric had a void in terms of earned value training, and they asked for volunteers, and my hand was the first one that went up because I could see I could add tremendous value to General Electric's bottom line by improving the engineer's ability to manage projects. So that's my transition into the world that I'm in now. And it's benefited me for, well, I won't say how many years, but a lot. And I continue to operate that way now. I look for those areas that need help and then volunteer to do it. Now, not only do I help the organization, but I'm building my skill set repertoire. So more and more things that I can handle can come my way. I'll be prepared.
You know, this is definitely great. I remember hearing this a couple of years ago where someone said, when you're an employee, you're actually being paid to learn. And I'm like, okay. You get multiple opportunities to actually, share your ideas and share your perspective, but you're getting paid for it. But a lot of employees have the mindset to say, oh, yes, I think I've got my job description. I'm going to go off and just do exactly what I've been told to do. But to scale and to create that career progression, that we can create that chart of the path to senior leadership. To Lee's point, you have to volunteer. You have to raise your hands up and say, can I actually do that? Can I be there to support my leaders to ensure that they're achieving their strategic goals and objectives? How can people who haven't got some certain type of skill sets, especially people really, really introverted, because I have some couple of mentees who kind of say, Fola, when it comes to like leadership and all of that, it means that I have to like be more outspoken. It means that I have to like lead more teams. How can they come out of their shell when it doesn't come natural for them?
Well, that's something that we've been looking at recently in the PMI world, because we have quite a plethora of certifications, of credentials that we offer. And people are starting to say, God, do we need to offer all of these? Are they really beneficial? Well, the fact of the matter is, if I'm an individual who has my eye on a different role or a more expanded role, there are training things that I need to take into my mind that will prepare me for that. So what we're finding is many people are taking training for jobs other than the job they currently hold, and they're preparing themselves for what comes in the future. And I think it's important to recognize, if you really want to move up. Now, there are some who don't want to move up. There are some people who do want to just do what they are given in the way of a description. But most people, whether it's a financial justification or whether it's a personal satisfaction, want to take on more. They want to be more valuable to the organization. And so I think if that's the case, then you all better start preparing yourself. One of the areas that I really am focusing on right now is this whole idea of leadership, but a subset of that is communication. And I think that people who take Toastmasters, for example, they are preparing themselves to be in a position where they're going to be responsible for making professional presentations. That's a great thing to do. And I think that that's what we need to do. Project management, tools and techniques and data, decision support information, but if you can't communicate it effectively, then it's really not going to add the value that you'd hoped for.
I know. I told someone this as well, where we said, you can have the greatest product, you can have the best ideas. If you cannot communicate that and translate the value, no one is going to get it. No one is going to understand that. So you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to communication, both verbally, both in writing, whatever it takes, if it means you start writing like little articles, here and there, so you can improve that skill set. Because I'm also president of a Toastmasters club here in Canada. And I encourage a lot of even people when they come in, they're migrants, they're like, you need to just learn how to speak. You're going to be in a safe spot where you can learn, you can get feedback, you can continuously improve. And that way, you can only get better. I want to just really dive into another angle when it comes to like mentorship. For a lot of people who have gotten this designation and they feel, now I have my PMP, I think I've landed a project management role. How exactly can mentorship play a role to help? Has that helped you in the past? And what mentors have you had as well through your journey?
Yeah, every job I've had, I've probably worked for maybe 3 companies in my career. And in each one of those companies, the first thing I did was find my mentor. The first thing I did was check around who's the guy to go to for answers, who's the woman that's going to give me what I need to be successful. And then from that point on, worked with that individual. And most of the skill that I have has directly come from a mentorship role. So I'm a big believer in mentorship. Even at PMI right now, I came into PMI. Now, I've been a member since 1978, but I've never worked with PMI. I've always just been a volunteer like everybody else. But I started to work with them on their strategic planning. And so I did the same thing. I said, who's the go-to guy at PMI if I have questions or concerns? And they gave me the guy's name, and I went to him, and I'll be darned if he's the best I could have ever guessed for. So I think it's important. Now, I try to mentor people if they request it. I think it's important to understand that to be mentored, you have to be willing to accept the advice and the information that the mentor shares. I believe mentorship is the future of many organizations. I just don't think you're going to get what you need in the training room. You're going to get a good dose of what you need, but to tie that up and to put that in the context of the real world, I think mentors are going to make that happen. And many organizations are now establishing a mentor role, but unfortunately, many of them are volunteers. They don't set it aside as an organizational component, which I think it should be. If you want to have developed a reasonable work group, then they need to be mentored, and that needs to be we set aside, not in our spare time, but that's what we do is mentor people.
You hit the nail on the head as well there, because I have had to help organizations set up something we call like knowledge management. And we talk about knowledge management and succession planning. And we think, okay, who is going to be, the next vice president? Who's going to be the next director? And we have numbers on there. However, what kind of plans are in place to ensure that these people are going to be successful? They could be comfortable and great at their job at the moment, but when it comes to strategic planning and succession planning, knowledge management, we need to have concrete platforms and mentorship that is structured so that these people can grow and become successful rather than just leaving it to chance. So how exactly can organizations tap into that? What kind of formal mentorship pieces can actually be put in place to help organizations manage resources and knowledge effectively?
Well, I think it has to be done from the top down. We have to look at it from the standpoint of determining what kinds of skills we need in that position, and then spending time with those candidates for succession, talking about these skills, talking about what they have and don't have in the way of skills, and then looking at what would my development plan be for that individual. I think it has to be measured. We always say if you can't measure it, don't do it. And I think that's really true. If we can't measure how is this individual moving towards being prepared to accept that higher level position, then we can't really tell. I've seen too many times, and I've observed some and had some very outspoken things to say about it, when a person has been put into a higher level position who everybody in the organization knows they're not qualified for.
They're not competent, exactly.
Yeah, they're not competent. They've been, what is it they say? You get promoted to your level of incompetence.
Incompetence, that's right.
And I think that I've seen that happen. And the downside of that is it's usually within a year or two, that person has disappeared. Because they've shown that they weren't prepared. So I think it's important that we measure that preparation. We create development plans for any of those succession ideas that we have to follow, and make sure that when someone leaves or retires or whatever the case may be, that we're ready to slide someone into that position.
This is really, really, really important because we see this happen over and over and over again. I talk about the listening leader and listening organizations where we see the data, we see the information, yet these patterns keep being repeated over and over. How can professionals on their own now take their careers within their hands and say, I want to be better. I want to be better prepared for the next position and the next level. We've spoken about mentors. You did say that, when you identify your mentors, you go for it and then you land that person as a mentor. What strategies have you been able to use to like get a leader to say, okay, I'm going to mentor you? Because people kind of say, how do I approach that person? How do I go about that conversation? So what steps can you share, from someone who's coming from a totally different background and who doesn't know that mentor at all? What strategies can they leverage to get that mentor to say, yes, I'm okay to become your mentor?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset more than anything else. I think we have to understand that when we're going to develop people for higher level positions, the mentorship is important, but it must be understood that wherever I identify weaknesses, that's not a hit on your skill set. That's a hit on preparation for the future. We can't expect you to know things that you've never been exposed to. And I think it's important to realize that, so that the mentee does not take offense when we talk about what kinds of developmental needs you have. I think we should be doing that on every individual in terms of their performance reviews. What skill sets, what objectives from a development standpoint do we think we need to have? Because everybody, even from the lowest level in the organization, if they want to move up, there's skill sets that have to be developed, no matter whether it's a high level or a medium level position. And so in our evaluation of people's performance, in preparation of those higher levels, we need to identify those skill sets that will enable them to move up the organization and be productive for the company.
That's great. That's when the mentee has landed the mentor. So Lee, my question now is, if I want to get maybe the next president of maybe like GE, as you said, and I'm like, oh, yes, I think I want that person to mentor me. What strategies can that particular person leverage to win that leader over to become the person's mentor?
Well, I think the way that works for me, at least, has been ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions. Make it clear that you're very interested in absorbing what it would take to do that job. And that not only does that give you the information, but it establishes a relationship with the individual regarding the quality and qualifications for that position. So I have a rule of thumb. I say ask questions, keep asking questions until somebody tells you to stop asking questions. Now you know you're on to something. And that's what I've followed most of my career. I think, but people used to get a little bit bothered by me because I would ask so many questions, but if I knew the answers, I wouldn't ask the questions. So we have to make sure that we are prepared to do that. Now, the other thing it takes, and this is a little bit of a problem, is that it also takes what I call passive aggressive behavior. In other words, you don't want to get in a fight over this, but you do want to be a little bit insistent about, hey, help me here. I want to become better at what I do, and I want to add more value to this organization until you can get them to recognize, hey, that's sincere. And then they'll take time to deal with you. But I think when I use that term passive aggressive, I've done that in a couple webinars, and I had a couple ladies just go nuts. They said, no, we don't want to be aggressive. That's one thing we don't. Well, I'm not saying go hit somebody over the head. I'm saying use an approach that's semi-relentless. If you need answers, you keep going till you get the answer.
Relentless. I love that word. Like, just going for it, keep pushing until you get the results that you obviously want. Building a relationship is one thing that it's like a string that has tied our conversations from the start. Building relationships, because when you're asking questions, you want to be able to be seen as someone, who is also positive and adds value. And it's all about building relationships, be it, trying to do that with your mentor, trying to do that in the organization as a project manager. How can project managers understand, what exactly it takes to build great relationships? Because beyond just executing on stuff, you need the people to get the work done as a project manager. You need your project team to help build. You need your project teams to actually help you create things. And it takes that relationship rather than just being like a top down to say we have to do this and that's how it's going to be. How have you been able to build great relationships over the decades of your experience and your career?
Well, I don't like the way you emphasize decades there, but it really, to me, sort of rests with the sincerity that you have as you start to build these relationships. I have a reputation for being a developer of high performance teams. I've done 3-year projects in 2 years, very profitable, and I tend to repeat that. The reason I do is because I take the time to get to know the people I'm dealing with. It's not a surface relationship. I consider anybody that's on my team or anybody that I'm reporting to as someone I want to know what makes them tick, because that can impact my ability to motivate and influence them. Even in my training programs, I always go to my training program about 45 minutes early. And those people who show up early, which they've been instructed, always show up early. Those people that show up early, I take the time to sit down with each of them for 3, 4, 5 minutes and get to know them a little bit. These are students. These are not even people that work for me. They're students. Because you see, the same thing works with students. If the students can relate to you as an instructor, if they feel that you have empathy for their situation or their position, they listen more attentively. They pay more attention to what you're saying. And to this day, I started training formally in 1973 for General Electric. And since that day, I've trained over 50,000 people in 27 different countries, and I continue to get contacts from those former students thanking me for making them aware of how important relationships are in addition to content material. So I just don't have any doubt about it. But the problem is it takes time and it takes sincerity. This can't be artificial. People will see through artificial attempts to build a relationship in a heartbeat. So it has to be sincere. It has to be realistic. And the same with going up. I used to do things kind of crazy. Like I'd find out my boss's schedule, and I'd make sure we bump into each other every once in a while so we can chat. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're just chatting. And pretty soon he's bumping into me now instead of me bumping into him. And we're having a little chat. And next thing you know, we have a relationship. So now when he has a problem, he comes to me and asks me, what would you do? He doesn't ask me to tell him what to do. He said, what would you do? He respects that opinion. And I think that's at the heart of relationships, is respect.
Goodness. I love the way you said it. You're like, you created a plan, so you kind of bump into him, and then you guys bump into each other. At the end of it, at times it may just take like little things that you need to do to become like always in the thoughts and the minds of the leaders who are going to make those decisions, right? At times it's not even about all the delivery, right? Even on a personal side, I tell people, do you even know anything about your boss or your manager, right? Do you know anything about your personal life? Because people have got emotions, right? Sure. Work is work, great, but they've got families as well. They've got challenges. Getting to know them even on a personal level now creates even a deeper bond. And so you guys can even share ideas, and they didn't see you now beyond just business, and it now becomes family, which is awesome. So Lee, we've spoken about relationship. We've spoken about certifications. We've spoken about being proactive. What are the strategies you think project managers need to become strategic project leaders?
Well, I mainly think it's inquisitiveness, kind of trying to understand what makes this organization tick. Where do I fit in terms of the projects that I've been asked to do? What contribution will my projects make? We're using this now, instead of delivering objectives, we're delivering outcomes. So that's a bigger issue. I mean, I've delivered projects before that never saw the light of day. And so if you look at that from an outcome standpoint, that's a failed project. Why'd we do it? We wasted resources and time. And so I think we need to understand what that contribution is, and then create a strategic plan. If you're going to work every day and don't have a strategic plan to help guide you in what you do and where you go and what you say, then you're going to just kind of stay where you are and doing a good job. I'm not saying you're not, but I'm saying if you want to advance, you have to go to work thinking strategically. We've been taught as project managers to think tactically. And I think it's time now that we begin to think strategically, because we have a tremendous amount of value that we can add to an organization if we step out of the tactical thought process and enter into the strategic thought process.
That sound means it's time for project lifestyle. How can we take all of this and also leverage this in our personal life? Our guest Lee has been talking about, being inquisitive, building relationships. He's spoken about getting certifications and learning. And when I think about holistically how we can really be successful as project managers and becoming project leaders, we need to leverage all of these ideas that we've actually shared. So we've just spoken about creating a strategic plan. What's a strategic plan for your life going into 2023? As we think about this overall project called life that has our career in there, our business, and our personal life, what exactly is your plan to ensure that you are going to be achieving your goals beyond just what you've ever thought or ever imagined? Create a strategic plan. And how exactly do you need to do that? It starts with the ideas. What do you really want to achieve as you go forward into next month and next year? What exactly are the key things that are the must-haves? Those big rocks, the pieces. Is it just financial stability? Is it just being promoted to the next level in your career? Is it being able to create a better life for you, for your spouse, for your kids, whatever that looks like? But you need to start by identifying what those ideas are, what those goals are, and take to the next level to understand what steps do I need to take to get me there? What resources do I need to take to actually get me there as well? What mentors do I need to identify to get me there? Mentorship. Mentors are the ones who can help create that path for you to create that life you've always wanted, because they have been there. They have been ahead of you. They have actually already gone through the ups and the downs. But why don't you start from experience? You don't actually need to fail first. You can already start from working with leaders, just like Lee. Lee has actually seen different aspects of business. He's trained people. Are you going to be reaching out to him after this podcast? Because he's mentored a lot of people. He's done this over and over again. Leverage the power of mentors. Build relationships. Relationships building will help you. There are things that you may not even know. Are you having issues probably at home with your spouse, with your kids? It may just be that you maybe are not just listening enough to understand what your needs really are. How inquisitive are you? Are you ensuring that you understand what the needs really are and bring that back to the strategic plan and creating a step-by-step approach and a work breakdown structure for that? It is easy. You can definitely create that life you want because you are a project leader. That's right. It takes having a plan, having the people to help you get there, as well as working consistently to help you achieve that particular goal. It's definitely awesome. Lee, how can we leverage this in our personal life?
Well, I'll give you a personal example. I think is the best way to do that. I started strategically planning my career, and actually in 1967, when I decided an engineer wasn't what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I started to look at how do I go about getting into an area that I feel good about, and that was communication. And so I started to join civic groups. I started to take on responsibility for civic projects and running them and motivating teams of volunteers, and carried that on through my work life as well. And realized that everything I was doing was moving towards my objective. And my objective was to be, and I'll be honest with you, this is what I used to tell people, I want to be the best damn instructor in the world. And so I looked at evaluations, I looked at weaknesses and strengths, and built upon those. And everything was going fine. It was going perfectly. And I had basically achieved that objective. And then 2 years ago, my wife of 55 years passed away very unexpectedly. And that caused my strategic plan to have a little hiccup. And so I stepped back and looked at that. And what I decided was strategically to be able to deal with that loss in the most effective way. My strategic plan was to travel all the time, everywhere in the world. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was able to do that. And so I got involved with PMI again, because they've always been there for me, and realized that that's the best network of related experience that I could ever draw on. So the past year and a half, I've traveled pretty much throughout the world, and I'm having impacts on thousands of people as a result of what I've been doing. So, and I saw this reinforced at the summit. I wasn't planning on this, but I sat outside the information booth for PMI, and there were literally hundreds and hundreds of people coming up and thanking me and taking pictures. And to me, that was justification. That was a demonstration of success in terms of reaching that. Now, did that just happen by accident? No, it didn't. And at the meetings in the PMI event at Vegas, I went around and found every senior leader in PMI and made sure that we had a chance to chat. Now, I knew some of them already pretty well, but by the time that was over, I had touched base from the new CEO, who's only been there 90 days, down to the director level. Spent time with every one of those people, sharing what my hope was to come from my relationship with PMI. So I think anybody who thinks they grow accidentally needs to wake up. If you're not planning it, you'll not get it. It's as simple as that.
I think that's a great wrap up. It's all about being intentional. To create that life that you want, to create the career that you've always dreamed of, it takes being intentional. You have to create the plan and also execute on it. Because a lot of the time we have something written down, we just put it underneath our pillows and we think it's going to happen. Every single day we show up, and I see that even from the work you do. You show up consistently, you share content, you're supporting, you're volunteering, and that's the way people get to see the value that you obviously have to share with the world. And that is definitely mind-blowing. I definitely want each and every one of you listening today to take action. Take action consistently. We've spoken about being inquisitive, building relationships, getting mentors, getting support. And overall, I want you to create a strategic plan. As you go to 2023, you want to be able to create a plan that has that holistic view as to what is it going to take to get me to that next level. Show up and show out to ensure that you achieve what exactly it is that you want. Lee, I want to say thank you so much. Is there any final words you want to give us today before we go?
Yeah, I do. I really want to compliment you. I've not watched your podcast in the past, and now I'm feeling badly that I haven't done that. I really want to congratulate you on the message that you're bringing to people, and I hope they're taking it seriously, because I think what you have to say and the guests that you have on are really, really powerful in terms of individuals being able to take what you give and take it to the next level. So I thank you very much for having me attend.
Oh, thank you so much, Lee, for being here. It's just an opportunity to actually serve the people, to give value as well, and help create leaders who definitely can impact the world every single day. And that's what we're definitely here today. I want to say thank you for being here. And for everyone actually listening, if you found what we've actually shared today of any value at all, do not keep it to yourself. Tell a friend, share it with a colleague. Yes, let them know about Lee and all the content you're going to be leveraging. And above all, I want to know in the comments one key takeaway that you're going to be applying in your career, in your business, and in your personal life for a chance to be featured on one of our episodes. If you've got any questions, you want to learn more about the strategic project leader when it comes to training, mentorship, or professional keynotes and workshops, let us continue the conversation on Strategic Project Leader lead.com. I want to say thank you so much for listening, and to let you know that when it comes to lead, you can actually find a lot of his work on here. And I know that he's also on LinkedIn as well, but you can actually go up to lambertconsultinggroup.com for a lot of resources, as well as his training that he actually offers. He shares consistently as well. You definitely do not want to miss that. Remember this: you are your life's project manager. You are the greatest project and most important project you can ever work on. Take action today and execute right. Focus on the outcomes, because the life you crave is just one project away. Set your reminders, because next week we're going to have another wonderful guest who is going to be coming to share their hearts. They're going to be sharing their thoughts. You definitely don't want to miss it at all. Thank you so much for being here, and have yourself a wonderful one.